We're counting down the 10 Orphan marine engines most likely to bankrupt an unsuspecting boat owner. From overpriced rebuilds that turn a cheap cruiser into a money pit, to mechanical time bombs that can strand you for a season, or worse. Each entry earned its spot for the havoc it wreaks when parts vanish or prices skyrocket. Surprising names, hidden dangers, and wallet-shattering risks await. So, which engine tops the chart as the ultimate financial disaster? Let's kick off the countdown with number 10. Red paint on a marine diesel might look inviting, but if it is a Westerbeke from the British Leyland era, it is time to check your wallet. Under the hood, these engines hide Lucas Electrical Systems, known in every boatyard as the Prince of Darkness. It is not just a joke. Intermittent wiring and flaky charging turn routine repairs into expensive hunts. Need a starter? Westerbeke will charge you 4 times what the same Lucas part costs for a car. Even basic switches or alternators can run $400 when the generic equivalent is $100, if you can even find the right one. Owners report chasing electrical gremlins for weeks, only to watch labor bills pile up as mechanics trace brittle wires and swap overpriced parts. The engine itself might run, but every time a light flickers or the starter clicks, you are staring down another economic total. That is why these red blocks earn the number 10 spot. The parts exist, but the price will sink any hope of a budget fix. 2 engines, same shape, same blue paint. But the Perkins 4107 hides a fatal flaw that can turn a routine oil change into a $15,000 disaster. This is the wet liner trap. In the 4107, each cylinder sits inside a thin metal sleeve called a wet liner. Coolant flows directly around those liners, relying on rubber seals at the top and bottom to keep oil and water apart. When those seals fail, and after 50 years they will, coolant leaks straight into the oil. The first clue is milky sludge on the dipstick. The fix is grim. Factory seal kits vanished decades ago. If you find one, expect to pay $600 or more for custom fabrication, with no guarantee it will last. The Perkins 4108, the dry liner successor, dodges this nightmare and still has full support. The only way to be sure is the data plate. If it says 4107 or shows a pre-1972 serial, walk away. A wet liner 4107 is not just an orphan, it is a silent bankruptcy waiting for its moment. A single-cylinder Farymann diesel looks simple enough, just one piston, a basic fuel system, and a reputation for running forever. But simplicity becomes a trap when you need to set the timing. The factory toolkit starts at $200 and the price climbs fast. Most mechanics will not touch these engines unless you give them the special timing gauge, and many shops will refuse the job entirely. The reason is Fairymann's timing procedure, a bizarre dance of dial indicators and lock pins, nothing like a standard Yanmar or Perkins. Without the right tools, you are guessing, and a single degree off means hard starting, smoke, or even a wrecked injector. Owners report calling every yard in town and being told we do not work on those. Even if you get it running, the legendary vibration shakes mounts to pieces and cracks brackets. The parts exist, but labor is scarce, and that turns a cheap engine into a 6-week headache. The lesson: a simple engine can be unfixable if nobody wants to touch it. Pisces diesels are a classic trap for the unwary. The engine block itself is an Isuzu truck workhorse, reliable, with parts everywhere and easy to keep alive. But that is not what sinks your wallet. The problem is the marine interface, unique bell housings and engine mounts built by Pisces, not Isuzu, and no two are quite the same. When Pisces went bankrupt in 2001, all support vanished overnight. Lose a bell housing to corrosion or a cracked mount, and you are not calling a parts dealer, you are calling a machine shop. Custom fabrication starts at $1,000, often more, and that is if you can find someone who will even take the job. Owners report waiting weeks for quotes, only to learn that the cost of a single custom piece can wipe out any savings from buying a cheap orphan boat. The block will run forever, But if the marine bits fail, you are looking at a timeline and a bill that can turn a working trawler into a permanent dock queen. That is the real danger. The engine heart is solid, but the parts that bolt it to your boat are the real kill points. An orange-painted block under the engine hatch is often a Pathfinder, a Volkswagen Rabbit diesel marinized by a company that vanished in the 1990s. At first, it sounds like a win. Volkswagen built millions of these engines for cars, so pistons and belts are everywhere, cheap and easy. But boats do not run on car parts alone. The real trouble starts with the custom aluminum heat exchanger bolted to the side. This part keeps engine coolant and salt water apart. Over time, salt eats the aluminum from the inside out. A pinhole leak means coolant in the bilge, salt in the block, and a repair bill that climbs fast. No marine store stocks a replacement. The original Pathfinder exchanger is unique. No Volkswagen part fits, and the company that built them is long gone. Call a welding shop and you will get a quote, $800 to $1,200 for a proper TIG weld, if the corrosion has not already turned the metal to powder. Some owners try patching with epoxy, but it rarely lasts a season. A new custom exchanger, if you can even find a machinist willing, often costs more than the engine is worth. Miss this detail during a survey, and you are looking at a forced repower that wipes out any savings from buying a cheap Orphan. The lesson is simple. Car engines can be tempting, but their marine parts are the hidden kill switch. Always pull the heat exchanger cap and check for corrosion before you buy. A Bukh DV series diesel can run for decades on European canals, but drop one into a Caribbean cruiser and you are at the mercy of global shipping. The engine's reputation for reliability means little when a $60 water pump seal fails 800 miles from Miami. Local yards do not stock Bukh parts. The only source is Denmark, and the clock starts ticking the moment you place the order. 6 weeks is the quoted lead time. That is on a good day. Add $400 for air freight if you want any hope of salvaging your cruising season. Owners stranded in the British Virgin Islands have watched the calendar flip while their boats sat idle, missing weather windows and losing prepaid marina fees. The price of a tiny rubber seal quickly snowballs into lost time, lost money, and sometimes lost patience. It is not the engine's fault. Bukh still supports these models in Europe, but the distribution gap turns a simple repair into a logistical nightmare. For American or Caribbean sailors, the question is not just whether the engine runs, but whether you can get parts before your vacation is over. That is why Bukh lands at number 5. Rock solid in theory, but a 6-week wait can sink your plans faster than any mechanical failure. A BMW badge on a marine diesel might sound like a status symbol, but the D12 and D35 engines are a masterclass in corporate abandonment. BMW dipped a toe into the marine market in the late 90s, selling about 400 of these diesels before bailing out in 2001. When they left, they handed the designs to Mercruiser, who promptly shelved them and walked away. That left every owner holding the bag. Need a water pump impeller? Don't bother calling a BMW car dealer. They will laugh and tell you to try eBay. The marine parts are not just rare, they are extinct. Owners have paid over $300 for a single custom fabricated impeller, just to keep the coolant flowing. Try finding an exhaust elbow or a starter, and you will run into dead ends and eye-watering quotes from specialty shops in Germany if you get a reply at all. The engine itself might be a solid diesel, not prone to the raw water rot that kills others, but every bolt on Marine Piece is now a one-off job. Even if you find a used part, it is likely from a scrapped engine and priced like gold. The myth of German engineering does not save you when the manufacturer ghosts the entire fleet. Prestige means nothing when you are stranded at the dock, waiting months for a machinist to build a part from scratch. That is why the BMW D12 and D35 are ranked so high, not because they break more often, but because when they do, you are alone. Volvo green on an engine block is supposed to mean reliability, but the MD11C tells a different story. Built in the 1970s and early 1980s, this diesel shows up in thousands of old cruisers, a favorite for its simple design and decent power. But under that heavy cast iron, a single part waits to sink the whole boat: the exhaust manifold. Salt water runs straight through it, eating away at the metal from the inside out. By the time you spot a drip or a whiff of exhaust in the cabin, the damage is already done. Volvo dropped support for the MD11C manifold in 2005, marking it as no longer available in every dealer parts book. That three-letter code is a death sentence. Used manifolds pop up online for $1,500, sometimes more, and most are already half-rotted. Owners try everything, patching with epoxy, chasing welders, or scouring salvage yards, but the story always ends the same way. If the manifold fails, you are not swapping a $200 part, you are looking at a full engine repower, often $20,000 or more. The other headache is cold starting. There is no glow plug, just a mechanical button on the injection pump that bumps the fuel for starting. If the compression is down or the battery is weak, you will be cranking until the starter smokes. Some owners reach for starting fluid, but that is a desperation move and a fast track to a cracked piston. The MD11C is not just a parts orphan, it is a financial trap disguised in green paint. If you see one, check the manifold for corrosion and ask for proof it has been replaced. If not, the boat's price better leave room for a new engine, because no amount of wishful thinking will bring back a part that Volvo buried in 2005. The Palmer P60 is the marine equivalent of a ghost story, rarely seen, but when you find one, it is a warning to run. This little red gasoline engine powered a handful of coastal cruisers in the 1960s and 70s, but Palmer shut its doors for good in the 1990s. That was the end of the line for factory parts. Today, finding a replacement water pump or head gasket is like hunting for a relic in a scrapyard. eBay listings pop up once in a blue moon, and when they do, prices start at $500 for used, untested parts. There are no new components, no rebuild kits, and definitely no manuals gathering dust. Mechanics who remember these engines are retiring, and the few salvage yards that might have a core are charging eye-watering premiums. The real cost comes when anything major fails. Lose a piston, crack a block, or even just snap an exhaust manifold, and the repair bill rockets past the value of the whole boat. Repowering with a modern diesel is not a quick fix. It is a $15,000 project minimum, and that is if you can find a yard willing to take on the swap. Most Palmer-equipped hulls end up abandoned, stripped for parts, or listed for pennies on the dollar. There is a simple sniff test. Open the engine hatch and take a deep breath. If the bilge smells like gasoline, you are holding a time bomb. Gasoline fumes in a closed compartment are an explosion risk. A single spark from a loose wire or starter motor can turn a cheap project into a total loss. Surveyors and mechanics agree, unless the seller is giving away the hull for free, walk away from a Palmer P60. The repower cost alone will bankrupt any dream of a budget refit. When the parts pipeline is extinct, even a $50 repair turns into a five-figure disaster. Bronze paint on an engine block is the ultimate warning sign. That's the Universal Atomic 4, the gas engine that powered more sailboats than any other in the 1970s and early 1980s. Pearson, C&C, Catalina, thousands left the factory with this 30-horsepower lump bolted to the stringers. For a while, it was the standard, smooth, quiet, cheap to fix. But that was 40 years ago. Universal stopped building the Atomic 4 in 1984, and the last crate motor left the warehouse before most of today's boaters were born. The orphan status is absolute. There is no factory, no hotline, no official parts. Try the Amazon test. Search for a water pump. Nothing. Not a single listing, not even an aftermarket knockoff. The few small shops that still rebuild these engines are running out of donor blocks. The real killer is not the carburetor or the starter, it is the engine block itself. Salt water cooling eats the cast iron from the inside, corroding the water jackets until a pinhole opens up in a cylinder wall. When that happens, coolant leaks straight into the combustion chamber and the engine is done. No repair shop will touch a rotten block. Welding cast iron is a gamble, and the cost of machining a custom sleeve is more than the boat is worth. The risk goes far beyond money. Gasoline fumes settle in the bilge, invisible and deadly. According to OSHA, 15% of all marine fires start with fuel vapors. One spark from a loose wire or a tired starter solenoid, and a quiet afternoon turns into a fireball. Surveyors know the smell. A whiff of gas under the floorboards means the boat is a rolling bomb. There is a reason insurance companies are wary of covering atomic fours, especially in older hulls with questionable wiring. The numbers do not lie. In 2018, a Pearson 36 owner in the Bahamas watched his atomic 4 block perforate after a $60 water pump failed. The tow cost $2,000. The repower, a new Yanmar diesel with mounts, shaft and labor, ran over $21,000. He sold the boat at a loss. That is not a fluke. Repowering any atomic 4 equipped boat today starts at $18,000 and climbs fast. Most owners just walk away, leaving the hull to rot in a backlot or on Craigslist for pennies. The red flag protocol is simple. If you see bronze paint, ask yourself, can I buy a water pump for this engine on Amazon, delivered tomorrow? If the answer is no, you are looking at an Orphan. If you smell gasoline in the bilge, you are looking at a gas bomb. And if you hear the words block rot from a mechanic, you are staring down the worst-case scenario, a repair bill bigger than the boat's value, and a risk that goes beyond the wallet. That is why the Atomic 4 sits at the top of the blacklist. It is the perfect storm of explosion hazard, irreparable failure, and a repower cost that will bankrupt any dream of a cheap refit. Across all 10 engines, one truth emerges. Support ends, but the costs never do. The real risk is not mechanical failure. It is isolation, with no parts, no manuals, and no way out but your wallet. In the world of marine power, what is discontinued becomes dangerous. For every buyer, vigilance is not optional. It is survival. Share your own horror stories and hard-won tips in the comments below.